Hello and welcome guys. If you want to learn how to make a really nice dragon flamethrower, you came to the right place. Stay tuned and watch the full tutorial. Guys, do you want to join a really nice server? We have tons of different channels. We have effects, modeling, loop dev, compositing. We even have resources for every type of discipline. So hop in and have fun. I also have a Patreon page where you can support me. I have every single file, I have polls, I have even some tools, guidance, so if you are interested, you may have a look. Thank you. Okay guys, so basically in the first shot, what we want to do, which is this one, is to make the dragon emit fire from the mouth, specifically the middle mouth, right? So when we open the file, we will have a bunch of cameras, a master scene, and a terrain. The master scene is basically the dragon, and the terrain is, well, basically the terrain, of course. What I did is to create a null on 0.01 and scale that 2 meters, because I have everything, the scale was very off, and this is how you fix it. So I usually start with the collisions. So in this case, if we hide this, we can see that I only kept a ground and a rock for the collision. And we can find this rock right here, basically on the out terrain. Under the file cache, it is terrain clean. Now that we know that, we can make a global collision. Why is it a global collision? Because in every shot this will be the same rock and it won't change. So let's hop in. I basically grabbed the terrain. I blasted everything that is not my rock. Basically, I just selected the rock and blasted it, and I made a collision source. The specs are this: the field interior, nothing else. This is the geometry, and this is the SDF. Out call rock main poly, out call rock main SDF. This is how I level it. Nothing else here. Next step, what I want to do is to go into the collisions. So we created a new collision source 1. What I'm doing here is to grab from the master scene the scene 01, and we will split everything based on the path which has the dragon. So as you can see, we are deleting this little guy over there. We're converting this, otherwise we wouldn't be able to control the polygons, and we're trailing the compute velocity based on the central difference, so we can have velocities. I'm splitting the wings with the path at wings and creating normals and points, so I can poly extrude this. I can reverse this because beforehand this was reversed, and creating the normals again. And here I'm splitting everything that's not the dragon, so I double click and created a split. And now we are merging these two guys together, doing a collision source. And we are doing on one side the collision poly, which has everything on the collision with their own velocities, as you can see here. And on the other side, we do have the collision SDF, which is basically these bodies. Basically, I'm using an out call dragon poly nomenclature and out call dragon SDF, so we can find it later on. Moving on, we're grabbing that auto-reach full dragon, which is this one. And what I'm doing is to group each one of the heads. This doesn't matter because it was already converted. So what I'm doing is to select each and every one of heads. You should be able to see them. There we go. You can see here, every single head is selected. This is manual selection. Then I'm copying this static. Remember, this is static. This is on the 1104. And I'm copying all the groups to a moving geometry, which is the same. We could do this, for example. It is actually the same. So the groups remain. So if we split the left, the left is split, and we want the middle one, which is this one, the middle head. I'm polyfilling this, so the back of the head is now filled. And then what I'm doing is to creating a collision source. The collision source is the same, call dragon middle head poly. As you can see, I'll make a chess. It depends on the scene. This is scene 01. And what I'm doing basically is to do a cache of this head on its own. This is way faster. I'm also doing this, which is a rasterization of the velocity. As all my shots, I do have basically multiplying this by this, as you can see here. Alt E, I'm multiplying the voxel size by the coverage scale, as you can see here, divided by 4. This will create a nice relationship between each other. And I'm basically running the B, and I'm just creating well, a velocity field, so we can merge it with the SDF, which is this one. As you can see, I did this so we can have more resolution. It's not that necessary, to be honest, but it will work. I'm merging these two guys together, and this is my out called Dragon Head SDF. On the other side, I created this just in case I'm going to show you. I created this value with the set names. All these two tools are on my Patreon, but basically what I do is to have a class on primitive with $os. Basically it's the name. I'm selecting any type of name here. So in this case, the attribute is going to be class because the name of the node is class. And I'm creating the name here. The name is going to be equals to an input, any input you want. It can be head, for example. It's going to be separated by the under slash. I don't know what's the name of that. And I'm going to use, remember that we are on primitives, the integer of the class. I'm going to turn it into a string, and we're going to have a name. In this case, we're going to have some 76 pieces because we have the teeth. In this case, I'm creating the bounding box of the. I'm creating the bounding box of each and every one of these teeth. I'm basically filtering this based on the height on the bounding box. So the small pieces will go on the left. This is easily done. This tool is not for my property. I mean, it is, but the main idea was from a Sigma course, CGMA course, destruction course. You need to watch that. It's a very nice course. So basically, right here, this is the code. What I'm doing is to create all the to get all the bounding box and store it in this float value where I'm multiplicating everything so I can have a single constant. And then all I'm doing is to compare the bounding box, which is this one on each and every piece, which is basically on for each with the name attribute, and say, hey, what's my threshold? This is my threshold. If you are less than this value, you will go on the left. Otherwise, you are bigger, as you can see right here. Then it's the same idea where you split based on poly and SDF, and you level it as you want. But we're not going to use this one. No, this is the important part. We're going to have this head. We're going to split everything, but these 2 points, which I selected at the bottom and at the top, is important, only 2 points, and we're going to add them by group, nothing else. And as you can see, when the dragon head moves, the wire or this line moves. We're going to measure this. We want the perimeter. As you can see, the perimeter increases and decreases right here. And we're going to use a time shift, so we are going to locate, it depends on the scene, where the dragon has the head close, which is, for example, right here. As we can see, if we do a time shift like so, we'll have the dragon head close. So this is very close. And the same for the height. I mean, when the mouth is open. This is exactly the same idea. So we're freezing this in time so we can extract this perimeter value. This is the max length middle head, this is the mean, and this is how it is at the current time. So we're going to compare this so we can have a new value, which we'll see right now. Moving on to the actual effects, let's hop in and let's go here and let's grab the dragon head and let's create a centroid right at the back. So basically created a normal, so we can have points going on in each direction. And what I did is to split these points so we can have the normal. It's kind of messed up because it's going upwards, but it doesn't really matter because we're going to grab this out to central back middle head, and land we're going to lower this. So what I'm trying to show you guys is the direction of this normal is going to go into that side, because there is going to be gravity, but we can control it anyways. So then we're going to grab the out perimeter, which is this one. Remember, we have the back and we have the middle. We're going to use a primitive, so we can use the scale to 0. We have 2 points here, which is the middle, and we are going to basically do this. Hey, the velocity, I want the velocity to become basically a normalization from the point 1. So one of these points, sorry, on the first geometry, on the first input, we're going to grab the P and we're going to grab the point number 0. And we're going to subtract this actual point, which is here. So if we show you the vector of the velocity, we are pointing right here, as you can see. So it will work based on the direction. This is very important. We're going to go right here. As you can see, it doesn't matter the velocity here. This is the out perimeter middle head. This is the min, I believe. Yeah, this is the min. And this is the max. So what we're going to do is to, store the rest perimeter min, the rest perimeter max based on these values. The prim 1, which is this one, and perimeter 0. The prim 2, which is this one, perimeter 0. So we store it. And the open factor is how big or how open or how close the mouth is. So it is easy. They fit the actual perimeter for the min and for the max to 0 to 1. So the open factor will only go from 0 to 1 when it's fully open. And we can use this to translate the velocity from the left side. Now we have the velocity right here. If I show you, we are going to see it right here. Very beautiful. And I'm promoting the open factor from prim to point, so we can use it right here. The velocity is going to be multiplied by this ramp, which is the open factor, and a multiplication of 2. So we can control how fast is the multiplication of the velocity. When it's close, it's 0. When it's at least a little bit open, it's going to go straight to almost 1 and then slowly increase. So this is how we can have a really nice open and closing automatic and procedural forces. Moving on, basically I selected this so we can look at it. And we're going to grab the back, the point on the back. We're going to grab the point in the middle. And we're going to transfer the velocity right here, as you can see. We transfer this. This guy is going to have these velocity values, which are the same. And then we're going to do the animation. The animation is going to say, hey, the P scale become based on the open factor and do a multiplication. So basically when the open factor is 0, it's going to be 0, and then we're going to slowly increase it around here. We're going to have a circle. Where is the circle? Here's the circle. I didn't change anything but the divisions. We're going to transform this so we can move it a little bit. You will see why in a moment. This is the dragon. I moved it because otherwise it's going to be very on the top, and I wanted this to be kind of in the throat. Remember, we are translating the velocities, so that's nice. And as we can see, when the mouth is closed or it's closing, the sphere is getting very, very, very small right there. And then what we are going to do is on this circle, we're going to scatter some points. The force is, well, you can put whatever value you want here, and you need to take these two guys on. We want to have an ID. This is going to be constant, as you can see, it's not going to change. We're going to have a mask. The mask, if we see it, is going to be something like this. The main idea is to have like really, really sharp values right here. So basically all I did is to create a float based on the mask, a sparse convolution with element size of 0.23 and a fractal of 6 and a reference of 1. That's about it. You can obviously change your values as you please. We're going to attribute interpolate. The disk is the same here and here, and if we interpolate the values, we will have the following. I'm going to delete everything that when is basically 0, because look at this. When the mouse is closed, we're going to have some points here because it defaults there, but basically 0. So let's delete this. We don't want points in the middle. We're going to also, when the mouth is open here, use our BDB on the middle head SDF, and we're going to blast this. You can see I'm selecting this, blasting it. This is how we select point. And the open factor basically is the mass is going to be multiplied by the open factor. So when the mouse is open, it's going to be 1. When the mouse is closed, it's going to be 0. And also creating some colors. Let's see these colors. Very nice. This is basically the same, exactly the same attribute noise, but I changed the value for CD. Then I'm deleting the pixel just in case. And using a time blend. This is very important because if we want to use the substeps in a simulation, we will need to have a time blend. I'm splitting everything based on this mask and a CHF of the threshold. All I did was go in here, drag a float, and then copy and paste relative reference. So basically I can control how much or less based on the mask. And I'm doing a small tweak on the velocity, so it's not so uniform. This is all I did. This is to keep in common and add curl with these values. And I'm setting the names just in case I want to change them. I'm not going to use them, so I can turn it off. Okay, so now that we're done with the source, let's move to the pop simulation. The pop simulation is very straightforward. Basically, I'm starting on frame 1060 for substeps. Let's hop in. All I'm doing here is to grab the source, inherit velocity by 40. You can do whatever you want. And the left expectancy is going to be 1. Jitter to negative back and use point velocity so we can have some more variation on the source. Let's go to a frame where something happens. Let's see. Okay, these vectors are messing up. Okay, so it's quite slow. I don't remember why exactly, but it should work definitely. Let's go to frame 1080. So this is the flame. So let's start by where I'm basically grabbing the out strong flame particle source. Where is this? We just created right here. The pop wrangle is basically I'm selecting the name strong flame. Well, I'm using this. You can see so I need to restimulate. So basically, if we hop in, every single particle that's called strong flame, hence this one, is going to have the velocity being added vertically based on a ramp, which is going to be based on the color. So not every color is going to be affected the same. As you can see, the CD.Y, X, Y, and Z RGB, so the green ones are going to go from 0.3 to 0.6 are going to be affected from 0 to 0.1. I know this value because we go to points CD.RG. The greens are going from 0.6 to 0.3 roughly. So that's where I get the value from. And I'm multiplicating these based on the life, on the age. So if they are reaching the end of their life, I want the velocity to go straight downwards basically. I mean, it's going to go straight upwards. So when it's here, what we will start seeing is that they will start to rise. As you can see here, I mean, this is bouncing, but it's also starting to rise a little bit. This is a little behavior. I mean, it doesn't really change that much, but I would suggest you to actually use these kind of things to customize your solver. As you can see, we'll have a ramp, so the ramp is only going to work on the extreme cases of the CD, and the life up is going to work, well, not at the beginning, but a little bit going from the end. So basically around here is going to work. So we can see the age, remember, is like the normalization of the age divided by life. So it's a value going from 0 to 1. Then we have a pop force, which an amplitude of 50, and the amplitude is going to be multiplied by the age. So when it's just beginning, it's 0. When it's ending, it's going to be 50. So the 50 plus, I mean 50 multiplied by this value. It didn't change anything else. On this sub solver, what I'm doing is to basically grab the geometry, group anything that's inside this this geometry, just in case. Basically, I'm grabbing the SDF, I'm expanding it a little bit with the BDB reshape, and I'm grouping it. So at the first frames, we can have something going on inside the head, so that's a problem. Basically, I'm also, well, this is just in case we have a particle in the middle of the ground. As you can see, this is not necessary. And then I'm blasting everything that's inside these two geometries, right? So if you're inside here, you should be deleted. That's about it right here. Then the physical of the pops are set to bounce 1 and forward bounce to 1, so they don't get all over the place. And I'm grabbing this rock out main poly, and this is the middle head. This is wrongly called, but basically I'm selecting this polygon right here, which we created before. That's about it. So then I'm deleting all the parameters that I don't want, so I'm only keeping age, life, ID, velocity, CD, and mask. This is all the one I want. I'm basically storing this into a file cache. This file cache, remember, stores every single frame. So we can see this is what's going on. And my viewport bugged out, so I'm going to restore my session. There we go. So now we have this, which works perfectly fine. This is the mask by age. I'm deleting a couple of points based on this animation. You can see this animation right here deletes the points. Otherwise, we will still have a lot, but I don't want. Basically, it's a round of the PTNAM, and if you are bigger than a certain threshold, which is this one, which is being animated, you are going to be removed. And then we are creating a new mask. We are overriding the mask value based on your age. If you are older than 1, it will be set to 1. If we see this is what's going on. Basically, I'm controlling a lot of the things where I want the solver to be based on 1. This is going to be 0, so at the end it's going to become less active. And the beginning, I want to have like a little fade in, so we don't have a lot of fire right here. I only want fire going on here. I'm deleting points based on the cd.y. You can see, so we can have something more random. And I'm creating the fields based on the mask. So here is 0, here is 0, and here is around 1. Using the point velocity, so we can change a little bit the velocities. As you can see, they do change quite a bit. This will create a lot of variation in the simulation. I'm rasterizing this. The rasterization is quite annoying because it's quite slow, but it's the same as before, the same ratio. I'm multiplying the same, the particle scale by the coverage scale divided by 4, and creating all these fields. I'm normalizing and adding a velocity blur with these settings, so we can have a nice interpolation. So this is going to be the out flame source, which I should cache out before doing a simulation, but it is not that big of a deal. As you can see, it loads very fast. If you have a slow PC, remember to cache this out. And to finalize this, as you can see right here, we want to create a new dopnet starting on frame 1060, which is exactly this one. As you can see, this is a very intensive simulation because we have velocities going all over the place. So I did 10 substeps. It is a lot, guys. It will take a lot of time if you don't have a beefy PC. Then you can lower this at cost of quality, of course. So let's hop in, and I'm going to use a value of 1 just so we can begin and have a fast interaction. So let's press play for a couple of frames. As you can see, with 1 substep we will have all these steps. I'm going to freeze the camera here, and I'm going to close this and go right here. So I'm going to duplicate this just in case, and I'm going to compute the range. This is what we have. So first of all, let's create a Pyro Source parse, and let's go to the shape, and we need to add these values: disturbance to 20, turbulence to 40. The disturbance can go from 0.15, basically it's like the threshold of the volume which we want to affect. So this will create a really nice look. Always on blocks base, it is easier to understand on 0.3, which is 30 centimeters, and this will be controlled by the temperature. I'm just moving this a little bit, and this is going to be from 0 to 1. Obviously, we can use a volume slice or time subs to determine the temperature, but it doesn't really matter. It will look nice regardless, and you will see. On the turbulence, we're doing exactly the same temperature ramp. I just did 3 levels and I didn't change anything else. I like the scroll size on 1. Then this is the objects parse. This is my resolution as of now. Basically it's 0.1. The main flame goes right here, which is all we need, which is the volume source, which is right here. This is the main source. So I'm creating a source field, and then I'm modifying the density, so it goes to density, flame to flame, temperature to temperature, and B to velocity, but this is going to be set to 2. That's about it. I'm instancing everything, and I'm enlarging the fields to contain the sources, so we have every single time our source inside the bounding box of the simulation. Moving on, I want to create a little bit more micro solvers and collisions. They go here. So I'm splitting with the merge and the merge the collisions, which is in this case the middle head. We can see it if we go here and set press collisions, and we need to be inside the simulation. This is the collision. You can see right here. Remember, this doesn't need to be enlarged, otherwise it's going to be very slow if you have a big collision. This is the out middle head, and these are basically this is the rock right here. Exactly, this is the same, nothing else is going on. And moving on to our micro solvers, the turbulence and the gas vortex confinement, this will go to 7. I didn't change anything else. The gas vortex confinement will move the smoke backwards when it goes forwards, and the gas turbulence is basically a new scale to 50. I didn't change anything else. And the control is the temperature, because I wanted a little bit more turbulence. Of course, if you want to mess around with more micro solvers, you are free to go. This is a very basic setup. So if we go back and use 10 substeps and then load this guy here, we will see we will have a really nice motion right here. As you can see, everything is more smooth. We cannot really tell where this is stepping because we have 10 substeps. And basically here, all I'm doing is to import the fields based on the dot network, which I did like this, and then selected the objects and grabbing these guys, which is the Pyro preset. And this is a tool I have on Patreon, but basically what I'm doing here, as you can see, is converting this into BDB using a vector merge, so we can have the velocities combined into single vector instead of 3 floats. I'm resampling the velocity, as you can see here, using the box at scale only, set to 2. And I'm setting the primitive to volume BDB and writing this value right here. Or I didn't, but I should have done this. So the file will be way smaller. I'm caching this, as always. This is very normal. And I'm pre-visualizing this right here. So if we move here, we'll have a really big smoke. Thanks for watching. Hi guys, if you enjoyed the tutorial, please leave a like, leave a comment. I'm always there for you. And if you want to join the Discord community, there is a link down in the description. See ya.